time is a concept developed around 1927 by a British astronomer and physicist named Sir Arthur Eddington. It goes like this. Time appears to have an intrinsic direction. The past lies behind us and is fixed, and the future lies ahead and is uncertain. Because the past is fixed, the events we experience cannot be undone. You cannot stir cream into your coffee and then go back and separate the two. And like Humpty Dumpty, a broken egg can't be put back together again. Another aspect of the arrow of time is entropy, which is the measure of disorder. Sorry to give you this bad news, but as we go along the arrow of time, this disorder, this randomness, this chaos increases. Things fall apart. I read an article recently that summed up the arrow of time in a succinct and demoralizing way by referring to it as a one-lane highway to death. Fun. Fortunately, there are other aspects of physics that hint towards a more complex view of time. In Einstein's theory of relativity, the universe is described like space-time, wherein time doesn't flow, but just is, making our perception of the arrow of time simply an illusion of consciousness. And I'm here today not to give any more lessons in physics, but to explore the illusion of consciousness and more specifically how we play with it, and if you will, dance in it. After Einstein's theories were accepted, stories of time travel and science fiction really took off. Now, because I teach astronomy in a planetarium, it's often assumed that I gravitate towards such tales. But that's not really the case with me. An article in the New York Times appeared recently that talked about people experiencing so-called time slips, experiences where they briefly found themselves in the recent or distant past. I skipped the article. I suppose Back to the Future type scenarios where there's tension about time travelers altering the past and bringing about a different future outcome are diverting enough. But mostly this sort of stuff just isn't my cup of tea. Why not? Because I'm more fascinated by the time travel that each one of us does, here and now, every single day. I'm sure you recognize the Peace Carol played or a prelude this morning, if you were on time. So what was that? Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Anybody know when that was written? Yeah, about 1801, I believe. You get the prize. All right. Anyway, over 200 years ago. Think about it. That tune was imagined in the human mind at the turn of the 19th century. He committed it to paper, and now, through Carol's mind and art and fingers, we can listen to that very composition in 2022. I was thinking about that when a colleague in Costa Rica shared a recording he made of that same piece. It inspired me to look for something in the night sky. And I found it recently, both from my backyard, but more dramatically, under much darker skies at Pinnacles National Park over the past couple of weekends. How many of you can recognize the constellation of Sagittarius in the sky? Anybody know what Sagittarius looks like? Okay, well, oh, yeah. So March and May know that it's visible now, low in the sky to the south, just after sunset, but it won't be for long. The familiar shape of this constellation is a group of stars called the Teapot. The pot is 4 stars that kind of make a trapezoid. And it's kind of tilted, I'll get this right because you're looking at it, tilted towards the horizon. That trapezoid has a little triangular lid, 3 dots for the lid. And on its right side, it has a little triangular spout. The whole thing is tilted down as if the teapot is being poured, and incidentally, the Milky Way is kind of like steam rising out of the teapot. On the left side of the pot are stars that mark a curved handle, just like a teapot. The upper of the two stars marking the handle is a star called Nunki, N-U-N-K-I. It's an Assyrian or Babylonian name. That's what I was looking for. Why? It's a star that lies 220 light years away from our solar system. So back at that star, the photons of light that passed through my pupil activated my retina so that I could see it. Those very photons of light left the surface of that star around the time Beethoven was dreaming up Moonlight Sonata. It traveled for 220 years at the speed of light. So I saw that star not as it is today, but as it was in, say, 1801 or 1802. I guess I spend a lot of time reflecting on the past. It happens when I listen to music. It happens when I read a book or gaze at a photograph. And of course, it happens when I look at the stars at night. But it also happens in everyday life. Walking in sunlight that takes a mere 8 minutes to reach us. Yeah, so the light here dispersed by the fog and pouring into these windows left the surface of the sun at about 10:35. But I digress. For me, history is absolutely vital. And that's best expressed probably in that famous quote about what happens when we don't learn from it. I do enjoy reading history, and although I don't keep track of how often, I do wander into my memories on a regular basis, as we all do. And of course, sometimes they wander into our brains, often welcome, but sometimes uninvited and decidedly unwelcome. But our memories give our life context. In the best cases, good memories can soothe us when times are rough, and memories of regret can inspire us to do better. And memories involving trauma, unlike the cracked egg, can be healed with love, skill, and patience. As we move through our own personal arrows of time, experiences build. We have more and more history as time passes. So, there's a certain logic to losing memory as we age. I complain that my memory isn't what it used to be, but I recognize that if I were to remember everything that ever happened to me, it would be an unbelievable burden. And as someone who was a caregiver for a person with dementia, I witnessed firsthand the toll taken when memory and the context for a life is lost. That life is still a rich work of history, but pages and chapters go missing and are put out of order. The arrow of time is twisted. These past few weeks, I was spending a lot of time in the future. I had a certain vision for this service, but as usual, I knew that once the time came, and here we are, it would have a life of its own. Planning for the future can be a stimulating process. Half the fun for me of taking a trip is imagining it. For this service in particular, I found my mind jumping backward, forward too far, and sometimes sideways. At work, I've been involved with teachers planning for class trips to the planetarium in the spring, all the while knowing that those students, that teacher, and I for that matter, will be different than we are today. But we can also become slaves to our calendars. The future only makes sense if we plan planet according to a guiding principle, or principles, maybe 7 of them. Let's take another astronomical excursion that starts with etymological. Anybody out there tell me what the word cynosure means? Cynosure.
Based on left. Like left-handed is based on sinister, that's sinister.
I can't hear you, but I think you misheard me. So anyway, cynosur.
Oh.
Cynosure.
Does that mean criticism?
No, not criticism. Mostly it means a focus of attention, but it also means a guiding principle. And it comes from the Greek word kinosura, meaning dog's tail. And kinosura was the Greek name for the constellation known as the Little Dipper. So Sagittarius in the south, Little Dipper, the north. So it's also associated with the North Star, Polaris. So Little Dipper and the North Star seen to the north from here and everywhere else in our hemisphere, every clear night of the year. Essential to navigation, it could both show you where you are and also help lead you to where you wanted to go. As I grow older and my history gets longer and the memory gets shorter, I'm grateful for our UU principles that show us a way to go into the future with a broad yet succinct sense of purpose. But although the North Star can guide a ship, it certainly can't steer it. That's up to us. Of the past, the present, and the future, I probably have the most trouble with the present. Perhaps that's because it's so fleeting, as was expressed in our first chalice lighting. Or perhaps I'm just spending too much time looking back or looking ahead. Just ask my wife, who asks me all the time, you know, are you listening to me? Can I get your attention here? Just to snap me out of my thoughts, inevitably about something I'm going to do, something I remember to have, I don't know. I spend much of my life distracted, or as I like to say, distractified. Now, I've tried mindfulness at times, and I will again, but for now, I'm just trying to enjoy the ride of these trips in time travel, and learn from them. Travel broadens the mind, right? Maybe this is just justifying my nature a little, but I do try to bring lessons home to my present self from these journeys. And understanding my journey can help me appreciate the different journeys that others are taking. I haven't even mentioned the fluidity of time in our dreams. I attended a online wellness session that was given Pinnacles, and there was a shaman there leading the session. That's why I really wanted to attend. And he said that dreams are really the one common language. Anyway, it's my hope that my recent flights of fancy into this phenomenon can help me, and maybe you too, have more understanding, empathy, and patience when we don't connect with others. Let us remember, as we travel along the paths of our own arrows of time, that others, even though in the same room, could be in another decade or even century. But as we come together here and then scatter physically out into the wider community, I'd like to think of all those arrows at least pointing in roughly the same direction. Now, I don't do mantras as a matter of practice, but somehow I made one up while thinking about this service. It helped me, and I'd like to conclude by trying it out together. It's simple, and it goes like this. I was, I am, I will be. So let's try it 3 times. I was, I am, I will be. I was, I am, I will be. I was, I am, I will be. Thank you.